Welcome back, everybody. Without further ado, Senator Ted Cruz, Senator from Texas, candidate for President of the United States of America, author of A Time for Truth, Reigniting the Promise of America. Senator Cruz, good morning.
Good morning, Bill. It's always great to join you.
Thank you very much. We're delighted to have you. A Time for Truth. I remember a book called Time for Truth, written by my old friend Bill Simon. Is this similar?
Well, indeed, I will say that was at least a part of the motivation. And as you know, Bill Simon's A Time for Truth helped set the stage for the Reagan Revolution that pulled this country back from the fiscal and economic brink that helped restore America's role in the world. And I think we're at a similar crisis moment and a similar moment where there is a desperate need to speak the truth about the challenges we face and to speak the truth about how we overcome those challenges.
Well, you're a candidate for president. You're a formidable candidate for president with a great intellect. I want to explore a couple of issues with you. But in general, you've said a lot already, and I want to explore a couple of those things. But what is the biggest challenge, problem? What's at the heart of our discontent?
I think the single biggest challenge is that today, for the first time in history, a majority of Americans believe that our kids will have a worse life than we did.
Uh-huh.
It's up to 65%, and that has never been true. You're an historian and a student of our nation's history. In the many centuries that we have existed, that has never been true until this moment of time. And it may be the most anti-American, most profoundly un-American idea you can formulate. And so I think the central issue in the next election is going to be reigniting the promise of America, getting back to that fundamental commitment that our kids will have a better life than we did, their kids will have a better life than they do. And I think the keys to doing so are really threefold. The number one, we need to bring back jobs and growth and opportunity, and you do that primarily through tax reform and regulatory reform. Number two, we need to defend our constitutional rights. And number three, we need to restore America's leadership in the world.
Yeah. A lot of what we do and a lot of what matters the most in terms of our attitudes, our hopes for the future is not, of course, you would agree, I think, with Samuel Johnson, how small of all that human hearts endure, that part which laws or kings can cause or cure. Are we actually, ironically, arguing that we should depend too much on government for our hopes for the future, or has government so messed it up that that's the first place to go to fix the boiler?
I would go to the latter. Listen, there is no doubt that culture is immensely important. There is no doubt that there is a need for faith leaders to stand up and lead a revival. But there's also no doubt that public policy can have enormous consequences. Many times I've compared where we are now to the late 1970s, and I think the parallels between Jimmy Carter and Barack Obama are enormous. We're right now trapped in a 6-year period of stagnation, what I call the Great Stagnation, because the federal government's policies of out-of-control spending and taxes and regulations are hammering small businesses. And today, we have the smallest percentage of Americans working than any year since 1978. And it is becoming harder and harder for people like my dad, who came as an immigrant from Cuba with nothing, washed dishes making 50 cents an hour. Those are the people getting hurt under the Obama economy. And we've got to get back to the opportunity, to the economic mobility that has so characterized the miracle that is our nation.
All right, so again, just once more on a philosophical level, that's my curse. Did you hear the Conan O'Brien line, by the way? He said, did it surprise anybody that the country that invented the philosophy major went broke? That's, I think... You knew some.
Well, what's the song? "Philosophy's a walk on a slippery rock."
That's very good.
Conan would enjoy that as well.
So here I am. I want to go back to this person who's worried about the future and thinks his kids may not have it as well. He's out there in Marathon, Texas. I've been in Marathon. I know you have. And you're saying to him, look, your family, your church, your school, your community, your neighbors, this is a big part of your life. but the federal government has messed things up. And my job as President of the United States will be to try to get that right. Is that the division of labor?
That's exactly right. And when you look at where we are today is unprecedented, in that we've never seen the federal government assaulting constitutional rights the way it is. Religious liberties is in the crosshairs.
Yeah.
And that is profoundly dangerous. Then if you look abroad, the rise of radical Islamic terrorism, this is not some abstract thing happening over an ocean. These are radicals who have declared war on America and have pledged to wage jihad, murdering innocent men and women here at home. And I think national security is going to be front and center in this election. And when it comes to how we turn things around, I think it's very simple. We have got to bring back to the polls the millions of conservatives who've been staying home. Yep. And the two main groups that have been staying home that we have to energize and mobilize are, number one, evangelical Christians. There are about 90 million evangelicals in the country. 54 million evangelicals stayed home the last election. And then number two are Reagan Democrats, a group you know very, very well, blue-collar Catholics, largely up and down the Midwest, up into New England, working men and women, the people who, frankly, are getting hammered by the Obama economy.
Yes, sir.
But we need to be speaking for hard-working men and women who want to believe again in the promise of America, and are getting hammered by where we are right now.
Let's talk about a couple of the issues you've touched on already briefly. Immigration could be one of the biggest issues in this election. Yeah, start here. Obviously, a lot of discussion about the illegals and the crime committed by illegals, which is vast and obviously a big problem, sanctuary cities and so on. But different states have addressed this differently. Why do I have the impression that your state, Texas, seems to handle this better than the state of California? Is there something to that?
Well, I think the approaches of the two states are markedly different. One of it is that the states, Texas, number one, addresses seriously the law enforcement challenges that illegal immigration unfortunately has caused by putting in place state personnel, law enforcement to do the very best we can with a federal government that refuses to do its job. Number two, we have an environment where jobs are plentiful, where small businesses grow and create opportunities. One of my favorite stats, Bill, comparing California and Texas, is the cost of a one-way U-Haul from California to Texas is over 300% the cost of a U-Haul going the other direction.
Yes, that great economist issue comparing California and Texas, right? I remember that. We're talking to Senator Ted Cruz is our guest. I should say that so everyone knows where all this insight's coming from. Excuse me, I interrupted you.
I was just saying it's simple market prices, that people go where the jobs are. And when you pursue low taxes and low regulations, you create an environment where jobs can be created. That expands opportunity for everyone. One of the things, when I announced my campaign a couple of months ago, I did so at Liberty University, 12,000 college kids. And one of the things I asked each of them to think about, right now, young people, they're coming out of school, they're scared, they're not sure if they'll get a job. If they do get a job, they're not sure if they'll get skills, they'll start building towards a career. They've got student loans up to their eyeballs. I understand that. I paid off my student loans 5 or 6 years ago. My parents went bankrupt when I was in high school. It's one of the things I discuss in the book, A Time for Truth, is my story. But I asked the young people, imagine an environment where small businesses are growing and creating jobs, and young people come out of school and they have 2, 3, 4, 5 job offers. That wasn't too long ago. And there's a direct cause and effect between screwed up policies in Washington and diminished opportunity for people across this country. And
absolutely,
that's what we got to fix.
Senator Cruz is our guest. I want to go to foreign policy. Let me put it briefly, my main objection. The president keeps saying it will take a generation, take a long, long time to defeat ISIS. I don't understand why that's the case. And then he says it won't be a military victory that'll prevail. It'll be social media that's so important. I agree social media is important. But when we look at the ISIS successful social media, you know what they're showing in that social media? They're showing military successes.
Sure. Now, look, at the end of the day, in their telling, they are winning. And the problem is very simple. It is a commander-in-chief who, number one, you cannot defeat radical Islamic terrorism with a president who's unwilling to utter the words radical Islamic terrorism.
Yeah.
We have this bizarre Orwellian doublespeak where the president refuses to acknowledge what it is we're fighting. You know, I'm reminded last year in the Senate Armed Services Committee, I serve on the Armed Services Committee, and the Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, were testifying before the committee, and I asked General Dempsey, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, I said, if the objective were to utterly destroy ISIS in 90 days, what would be required militarily? And his response, he said, I'm sorry, that's simply not possible. I said, okay, General, well, perhaps that time frame is not realistic. So you tell me, if the object were not to degrade, not to weaken, but to completely destroy and defeat ISIS, what is required militarily to accomplish that? And his answer, sadly, the General repeated President Obama and the White House's political talking points. He said, I'm sorry, there is no military solution to this problem. The only answer is to change the conditions on the ground, the poverty, so that young people are not attracted to radicalism. And with all respect, Bill, that is utter nonsense. The answer is not expanded Medicaid for Iraq. The answer is, if you join ISIS, you are signing your death certificate, because we will take out radical Islamic terrorists who've declared war, who are murdering children, Christians, who are crucifying Jews, Muslims, and who have declared their intent to wage jihad on innocent Americans. That's the job of the military, not engaged in bizarre social policy, which is where this administration seems to want to go.
No, that's exactly right. I've been frustrated by police commissioners who don't want to be police, generals who don't want to be generals. Everybody wants to be a philosopher, you know. And there are only, believe me, there are too many of us already. Senator, we've used up our time. Your book is A Time for Truth. We thank you very much for coming on. You're always welcome here whenever you want to come on. I won't see you in Cleveland, but I will see you at the Reagan Library.
Well, I look forward to it, and Bill, thank you for your relentless voice for truth.
Thank you, sir.
Because it is a time when it is needed, and the courage to stand up and speak the truth, and frankly, to take on both parties.